Central Idaho in the early 1980s was the picture of rural calm. Vast valleys stretched between rugged mountain ranges, dotted with small ranches, farms, and mining operations. Life moved slowly, dictated by the seasons rather than worries about earthquakes. Unlike California or Washington, Idaho had historically experienced only minor, infrequent tremors that rarely made a noticeable impact on daily life. The region's sparse population and wide open spaces created a false sense of geological security. The towns of Mackay and Challis sat quietly in the heart of this landscape. Mackay had roughly 500 residents, while Challis was home to about 1,000. Both communities relied heavily on ranching and mining, with main streets lined with historic brick and wood buildings that had stood for decades. Unpaved mountain roads connected the towns, used by hunters, ranchers, and travelers, winding through forests, river valleys, and past foothills that hid centuries of geological tension beneath the surface. Beneath this peaceful scene, immense natural forces were slowly at work. The area is part of the Basin and Range Province, a region where the Earth's crust is being stretched apart at a rate of just a few millimeters each year. This stretching produces deep fractures in the crust called faults, where blocks of Earth can move suddenly when stress builds too high. One of the most significant of these is the Lost River Fault, which runs along the western base of the Lost River Range, including Idaho's tallest peak, Borah Peak. For hundreds of years, this fault had been storing energy. As tectonic forces pulled the crust apart, the valley floor sank gradually while the mountain range slowly rose. Geologists had identified ancient surface ruptures that revealed the fault's active history, but the timing of the next major quake remained completely unpredictable. To residents, the notion of a catastrophic earthquake felt abstract, something that might happen somewhere else. Unknown to them, a massive release of energy was quietly accumulating beneath their feet, preparing to reshape the landscape in mere seconds. Friday, October 28, 1983, began like any other in central Idaho. In Challis, children walked along quiet streets on their way to school, while in Mackay, shopkeepers prepared for a normal business day. Ranchers tended their livestock in the crisp autumn air, unaware that a catastrophic event was about to unfold beneath the mountains. At exactly 8:06 in the morning, the accumulated stress along the Lost River Fault finally released. Approximately 10 miles beneath Borah Peak, the rock fractured violently, unleashing a magnitude 6.9 earthquake, the strongest ever recorded in Idaho, and the most powerful to strike the lower 48 states in over 24 years. For 30 to 60 seconds, the ground convulsed with extreme intensity. 2 elk hunters reported hearing a deep, low roar before they felt the shaking, a terrifying sound that grew louder as the earth ruptured. One hunter even had to sit down, overcome by nausea and the violent movement. The earthquake did not release energy in one simple jolt. The rupture traveled unilaterally to the northwest, cutting through the crust for more than 21 miles. Along the base of the Lost River Range, the ground split, forming a dramatic fault scarp. In places, the vertical displacement reached 9 feet. Borah Peak itself rose approximately 1.5 feet, while the valley floor on the opposite side sank by over 5 feet. The violent ground motion shattered the landscape. Blocks of earth several meters wide tilted chaotically, producing Mercalli intensity 9, classified as violent. In Challis, unreinforced masonry buildings crumbled instantly. Tragically, 6-year-old Travis Frank and 7-year-old Tara Leighton were killed by falling bricks on their way to school. Nearby, a woman was injured by falling debris, but was rescued by co-workers. Mackay, located roughly 50 miles away, experienced widespread structural damage. Brick, stone, and concrete block buildings suffered major damage, with facades peeling away and walls collapsing. 11 commercial buildings and 39 homes were heavily affected, with hundreds more receiving moderate damage. The estimated financial toll of the destruction reached $12.5 million. The quake's force extended far beyond the epicenter. Shaking was reported across 8 states, from Oregon to Wyoming and even into parts of Canada. Within moments, central Idaho was transformed from a quiet rural landscape into a scene of sudden chaos. Its towns and natural features scarred forever by the immense energy released beneath the mountains. In the hours following the earthquake, the immediate danger of violent shaking had passed, but the region was far from safe. Thousands of aftershocks rattled central Idaho, some strong enough to topple weakened structures or trigger landslides. These tremors continued sporadically for more than a year, with the largest aftershock, a magnitude 5.8, striking in August 1984, nearly 10 months after the main event. The earthquake dramatically altered the region's hydrology. Groundwater systems shifted unexpectedly as cracks and fractures opened deep underground. Near Chili Buttes, residents witnessed spectacular surges of muddy water erupting from the ground, forming nearly mile-long zones of sand boils and small craters. The Big Lost River swelled as subterranean water erupted onto the surface, flooding pastures and fields. Local infrastructure suffered secondary damage. At a trout hatchery, sediment-laden water clogged supply pipes, killing large numbers of fish. 30 miles north, the Clayton Silver Mine experienced severe flooding as groundwater poured into fractured tunnels. Pumps were quickly overwhelmed, and within 14 hours, the entire 330-meter level of the mine was submerged, resulting in a total loss. Water sources in the region became unpredictable. The Ingram Cattle Ranch lost a primary spring just 2 hours after the quake, while another major spring completely dried up for 8 days before returning with 9 times its previous flow. 2 days after the earthquake, this resurgence triggered a mudflow that devastated over 2 miles of valley land. Even as far away as Yellowstone National Park, the eruption intervals of Old Faithful Geyser were noticeably affected. Communities faced both physical and psychological impacts. While only 2 lives were lost, residents experienced widespread fear and disruption. Reporters and news crews descended on the small towns, sometimes venturing into damaged private property. Helicopters filled the skies, creating concerns over air traffic collisions. The federal government acted quickly. On November 18, 1983, President Ronald Reagan declared the area a major disaster zone. This declaration allowed federal aid to support the rebuilding of Challis, McKay, and surrounding communities. Roads, bridges, and essential services were prioritized, and temporary shelters were established to house families displaced by structural damage. Economic recovery was slow. Beyond the immediate property losses, ranchers and farmers faced disruptions to livestock and water supplies, delaying planting and harvesting. Thousands of cattle were at risk, while irrigation systems were damaged or rerouted. Despite the devastation, residents began the painstaking process of rebuilding, aware that the earthquake had permanently reshaped both the landscape and daily life in central Idaho. The Borah Peak Earthquake was more than a geological event. It was a comprehensive upheaval of human and natural systems, from structural damage to hydrological changes, from disrupted communities to altered wildlife habitats. The quake demonstrated the interconnected consequences of a major seismic event in a rural, sparsely populated region. The Borah Peak Earthquake quickly became a landmark event for scientists and geologists. It was the first major quake in the Intermountain seismic belt to produce significant surface faulting since the 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake. This made it an unprecedented opportunity to study an active fault in real time. Within hours, teams of geologists deployed portable seismographs and field equipment to record aftershocks and map the surface rupture. Their work allowed them to document thousands of tremors with remarkable precision, providing a 3-dimensional picture of the fault system. The 21-mile-long fault scarp that formed along the Lost River Fault became one of the most studied geological features in the world. Scientists excavated trenches across the scarp to examine layers of sediment and rock, a field known as paleoseismology. This revealed evidence of prehistoric earthquakes, giving insight into the long-term behavior of the fault. By comparing past events to the 1983 rupture, researchers could better predict the timing, magnitude, and potential effects of future quakes in the region. Beyond the scientific value, the earthquake forced a reevaluation of engineering and building practices in Idaho and throughout the Intermountain West. Unreinforced masonry structures proved particularly vulnerable, leading to changes in building codes and construction standards. Engineers began emphasizing seismic design even in areas previously considered low risk, acknowledging that inland earthquakes could produce intense surface faulting and significant damage. The event also highlighted the importance of disaster preparedness in rural areas. Emergency services had to coordinate across isolated valleys and rugged terrain, emphasizing the need for communication networks and response planning. Local authorities documented evacuation routes, temporary shelters, and supply distribution strategies to improve future readiness. For the scientific community, the Borah Peak Earthquake served as a natural laboratory, teaching lessons about crustal stretching, mountain building processes, and the hidden forces at work beneath seemingly calm landscapes. Data collected during the event contributed to improved seismic hazard maps and a better understanding of normal fault earthquakes. The impact extended to education as well. Universities and research institutions incorporated detailed studies of Borah Peak into geology curricula, using the earthquake as a case study for fault mechanics, aftershock distribution, and surface rupture analysis. Students and researchers alike could observe firsthand how theoretical models aligned with real-world data. Even decades later, the scar left by the earthquake remains visible, a sharp, pale line etched into the base of the Lost River Range. It is a constant, tangible reminder of the power beneath the Earth's crust and the value of ongoing scientific study. The Borah Peak earthquake showed that even remote and sparsely populated regions could experience dramatic geological events, offering lessons in both preparedness and understanding. Ultimately, the 1983 earthquake reshaped not just the land, but the way scientists, engineers, and communities approach seismic risk. It stands as a dual legacy: a sudden, violent disruption for those who lived through it, and an invaluable source of knowledge that continues to influence geology and earthquake preparedness today. The Borah Peak earthquake of 1983 left an indelible mark on Idaho's landscape and its communities. While the human toll was relatively low, with the tragic deaths of 2 young children, the broader disruption was immense. Entire towns experienced structural damage. Unpaved roads were cracked and shifted, and local water systems were dramatically altered. The quake demonstrated how even sparsely populated regions could face powerful natural forces and highlighted the vulnerability of rural infrastructure to seismic events. From a geological perspective, the earthquake provided a rare, detailed look at the mechanics of a normal fault in the Basin and Range Province. The vertical displacement of up to 9 feet along the Lost River Fault revealed how energy built over millennia could be released in mere seconds, permanently reshaping the terrain. Borah Peak itself grew taller, while adjacent valleys sank, leaving a visible record of the Earth's movement. These dramatic changes became a living classroom for geologists and seismologists, shaping studies on fault dynamics and aftershock distribution. The event also left a lasting impression on disaster preparedness and public awareness. It underscored the importance of early warning systems, emergency planning, and community education, even in regions not traditionally considered earthquake-prone. Local authorities, aided by federal agencies, improved response strategies, ensuring that future seismic events could be met with greater speed and coordination. For residents, the earthquake was a reminder of nature's unpredictability and power. The physical scars in the landscape, from the fault scarp to the sand boils and realigned waterways, serve as tangible evidence of the forces at play beneath their feet. Even today, hikers and visitors to the Lost River Range can see these changes, connecting directly with the event over 35 years later. Ultimately, the 1983 Borah Peak earthquake stands as both a tragedy and a triumph of scientific observation. It combined sudden destruction with an unparalleled opportunity to study an active fault, providing critical data that continues to inform geology, engineering, and disaster preparedness. The lessons learned here extend far beyond Idaho, offering insights into earthquake risks throughout the Intermountain West and beyond. The quake reminds us that even quiet landscapes can harbor immense energy, waiting centuries for a single transformative moment. It also reinforces the importance of respect for natural forces, preparedness, and ongoing study. While the Earth moved in just 30 seconds, the knowledge gained from those moments will continue to shape how communities and scientists understand and respond to seismic hazards for generations to come. The Borah Peak earthquake, though fleeting in time, left a permanent legacy in both the land and the minds of those who study it, an enduring lesson in the raw, unrelenting power of our planet.